So in a little bit of a trip down memory lane, I've been watching a few of my older skateboarding videos in which I realized I was a lot more confident with skating rails, and I think that was due to having a flat bar at my disposal pretty much whenever I wanted. And that really made me want to own a flat bar again. I looked online, and some of the flat bars on Amazon and other websites, they're a little bit pricey. I don't know if I want to spend upwards of $200 to $300 for a rail that I'm gonna skate. So I decided the next best decision would be to just go ahead and build one myself. So we're here at Home Depot today, pick up some wood and a few other things that are gonna help us build this skate rail. There we go. Yeah, a couple of these. 6 feet of plain steel, 8 feet, 5 feet zinc. Make it 4 feet. Let's see how many there is. I know I got the worst cart. There it is. One of my goals with this rail was to make it as simple as possible using as few parts as possible. Pretty much everything I needed could fit right here on the table. I began with 2 8-foot pieces of 2x6, a couple of pieces of angled steel, a few wood screws, a drill bits, handsaw, and of course a tape measure and a pencil. I don't own a circular saw, and I wasn't planning on buying one this day, so I decided to try and use a design in which I could use just a handsaw. This will inevitably cause the cuts to be somewhat rough around the edges, but that's fine with me. I don't think it will affect the overall skate ability of this rail. So to begin, I cut the 2x6s in half and connected them with a couple of wood screws before cutting 4 12-inch sections of wood to use as the feet. I then attached those feet to the flat bar using some more wood screws. In retrospect, I should have utilized longer wood screws or attached just one set of the 12-inch 2x6s first before attaching another set. That way I wouldn't have had to use this diagonal drilling pattern. But this is the first rail I've ever built, so it is somewhat of a prototype and a little bit rough around the edges. The next and final step was to attach the angled steel to the top of the flat bar so that I would be able to grind it. I first did this by drilling directly into the top of the angled steel and the wood, and then putting some screws in through those holes, which turned out to be a bit of a mistake. Either I should have used larger drill holes, or, as I later ended up doing, screw them in from the side. So after a little bit of trial and error, here we have the finished product, my own flat bar rail once again. The final dimensions for this rail are 4 feet long by 10 inches tall, which I understand is somewhat small for a skate rail, but I do have a slightly smaller vehicle, and so I wanted something that would fit in my car, as well as something that wasn't too cumbersome to lug around and skate. And so I suppose that's the next thing we should do, the final test for this rail. How well does it skate? So I think it goes without saying that this rail skated fairly well, which was a pleasant surprise. Due to the steel being absolutely brand new, it was a little bit sticky at first and required multiple waxings throughout the session, but it still grinded and slid fairly well. The size of the rail didn't seem to cause any issues, and the height, whilst being somewhat short, was actually fairly conducive to eliminating some of the fear factor of doing tricks that I probably wouldn't have on any other size rail. Being a relatively short 4 feet long rail, some of my tricks I found were a little bit sloppier than they usually would be, just because I wasn't used to coming off of the rail as soon as I did. But once I had that in mind, I found that the shortness of the rail didn't affect my tricks or grinds overall. One of the things I was somewhat concerned about with this rail was whether or not it would stay in place. I was worried that once you got on and started grinding and sliding it, that it would slide about on the ground. However, that didn't seem to be an issue at all. It seemed fairly sturdy and rigid on the ground. One thing I did notice that was somewhat of a smaller issue was depending on how you put your weight on the rail, depending on where you got on and where you got off of the rail, occasionally it would tip on one side. This is a pretty lightweight rail, so it's understandable that the weight of my body would cause it to tilt in any one direction depending on the fashion of the skateboarding rail maneuver. But all in all, I think this is the perfect rail for me. Whilst not being absolutely perfect, it does everything that I need it to do. I just wanted something that I could have that would be portable and personal to learn some new grinds and slides on. When you go to the skate park, it's a completely different environment. You usually end up just honing in on skills that you already can do, and learning new tricks at a skate park can be a little bit difficult sometimes, especially when skate parks get busy. But if you find a nice solid flat piece of ground that is smooth and well receptive to skateboarding, then you could bring this thing out with you and just go ahead and learn all the grinds and slides to your heart's content, which is what I plan on doing in the next few weeks, because I already feel a little bit of a high, a little bit of an upswing with learning 3 new grind tricks in that session that you just previewed. If I were to do this project again, there were definitely a few things that I would do differently. As I mentioned earlier with the feet, I'd probably try and screw one of those in first and then attach a secondary or tertiary one underneath just to elevate it to the height that I want it to be. Or maybe just use some longer wood screws. I think also in the future I might invest in a circular saw just to get some nice clean cuts in the wood so that it's not really rough and nasty. Or maybe even just get some sandpaper and sand down those edges. I think also I might want to try using some circular steel. Try and get some round rail action, get good on those. Locking into circular rails with 50/50s just terrifies the poop out of me. One too many times locking in on the wrong side and slipping out, destroying myself. So maybe having one of those at my own disposal to just be able to practice on could be quite beneficial for the future. I hope you enjoyed watching me build the perfect skate rail. While maybe not be perfect in your eyes, it's perfect for me. And if you think that you can do a better job, be sure to @ me on Instagram. It's Spootyskater, just like it is always everywhere. And for all things skateboarding and shenanigans, stick around to Spootyskater for keeping on the spoot. Is that really disorienting? I can imagine that's like really just annoying and you're just like, stop, just stop it. Get some help.